Hey there, welcome to Lunch and Legislature. I'm Darsha Dodge, 1011 senior reporter. Joining me from Local 4 in Hastings, Ian Mason. Ian, how are ya?
Doing good. I am the morning anchor here in Hastings, but I also do political, investigative. I just kind of do whatever's fun, Dasha. But today we're here to talk lunch and legislature.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about your background covering the legislature. So for me, I moved to Lincoln last year. I spent 4 years covering South Dakota's congressional delegation and South Dakota's state legislature. So that was fun. This is my first full session being here in Lincoln, so I'm excited. But yeah, tell me a little bit about how long you've been doing this.
So I kind of really got into gear last year with the legislature as well. I mean, I'd been paying attention to it before. I would take stories here and there, especially when I was in North Platte, which is where I started out. So it just depends on where I came from. But last year I started doing deep dives. I think there was close to 12 of them, where I basically just took a bill and then broke it down, basically took the legalese of the bill and then made that legible to the average viewer. So I'm a detail-oriented guy. I enjoy making things legible, helping people understand things. So that's one of the reasons why I really like to cover the legislature. But Dasha, I'm just about as new to this as you are.
Well, I'm excited. That's the whole point of Lunch in the Legislature, right? Is to break down what's happening at the legislature, make it digestible for people. As you can tell, we're not eating lunch, so you don't have to watch us eat while we talk. But hopefully you're eating lunch.
Watch us eat, and we're not going to spill anything on the desk.
Something that you can do over your lunch break. So we're going into the session this week. The session starts Wednesday, the 7th, starts at 10 a.m. It's a short 60-day session. This is their second session, and there's a lot of things we're watching. Pretty much one big thing, Ian, I'm sure you can guess what that is. That's the budget.
Yeah, the budget deficit.
Yeah, $471 million at last count is the budget deficit. Governor Pillen's office has talked about $500 million in cuts for state spending, mostly through increased efficiency, according to his office. Talk to me a little bit about what you're looking forward to this session.
So one of the things that I was kind of my beat last session was also like education. And so specifically I was Senator Lauren Lippincott of Central City basically had this bill that would let students out of school. It's called RTRI. They would let them out of school for religious instruction and they could receive school credit for that, and it was during school hours. That ended up really being a big deal because the Education Committee, when they came out with, we call it an omnibus in the business, it's basically a big bill with a lot of little bills inside of it. The education omnibus almost didn't pass the legislature because that RTRI was included. There were some filibuster threats. There was a lot of drama just like the last 2 days of the session over that alone. And so I'm curious to see, I know Senator Lippincott and I have talked, and last I checked, he planned to bring all that back. So I'll be curious to see what makes it through this year, especially on the education front. And of course, as we talk about budget cuts, education is also something that tends to be cut. I know that Nebraska spends a lot of money on students compared to some of the surrounding states, and I think that they're going to be looking at more efficient ways to spend that money.
I sat down with Speaker Arch last week, just talking a little bit about he's term limited as a senator after this year, so he will retire from the legislature as the speaker. And I just asked him, like, what do you think this session's going to look like? Because I've heard from senators that this is going to be, in their words, interesting, dramatic. These are all words that we've heard talked about. And Speaker Arch just said, we only have 60 days. This is the short session. We only have 60 days. We can't do all 8-hour bills. We can't do all filibuster bills. So one of the things that he did to kind of go in with this clean slate was he actually reset 19 bills back to priority, off priority status. So he removed all of the priority status from those bills purely so that everybody can go in with a clean slate. They can decide what is most important to them, and they can take that up. Budget obviously is going to take up a ton of the oxygen. State law requires that they have a balanced budget, and that has to happen by April 17th. So that's going to be huge. One of the other things that we talked about, I chatted with Senator Kathleen Kauth a couple weeks ago, is going to be her transgender bathroom bill that did not pass in the last session. Parts of the sports part of that passed through the last session, but that didn't pass in its own right, in its own text. And what Senator Kauth had said was, you know what? I will bring this up. I will introduce this. If it's passed, then I won't bring it up again. And as I've chatted with senators over the past couple of weeks, as we're getting ready to head into the session, one thing I've heard is when we're in a situation where money is a huge factor, when we're short money, right, then these kind of social bills tend to get introduced because they don't really take up money. So it'll be interesting to see. Speaker Arch kind of agrees as well. You know, it's almost impossible to predict what's going to happen, but we know budget will be part of it.
I think that we'll see some creative use of budget. So like one of the things that happened last year in the legislature, and I guess not in the legislature, but more specifically the Health and Human Services Department, they cut off, or I guess they didn't cut off, they decreased the amount that they're reimbursing autism therapy for students. So if you have a child who's autistic, they can go to applied behavioral analysis, I believe is what it is. Don't quote me on that though. ABA therapy, and that kind of helps them communicate in the world with and react better to changing situations. And so, basically, what happened is that had the cost for that for children on Medicaid had gone from a couple million to like 80 million. And so the department said, hey, we're going to pull this back. We're going to pull this spending back. We're not going to reimburse as much as we were. Now we have centers like an autism center like here in Hastings, I think it's Wabi Sabi, who said, hey, we cannot continue to afford to take on these Medicaid patients. And so that's going to be something interesting. I know that Grand Island Senator Dan Quick, he's allegedly introducing a bill to refund those services. This is something I'm going to be looking into over the next few weeks, Darsha, so that's going to take some of my time away. So I guess I'm previewing that story a little bit, but that I expect that to be a hot issue this year, because when Governor Pillen was in Grand Island a couple weeks ago talking about what he expects from this legislative session, he brought up ABA therapy, and he was very I don't want to say pro-cut, but he was supportive of the idea that the spending was just too much for that.
Well, and we know unconfirmed numbers, right? DHHS hasn't confirmed what their cuts look like, but the estimation probably in the $150 million range. One of those things, obviously,
that
the
ABAs,
the other addiction services, which we reported on last week as potential cost-cutting measures there. So we know there's going to be cuts. We know that things have to be cut. And one thing Governor Pillen has said last week plainly is we have to become more fiscally conservative. And his belief is overwhelmingly that we have at least 33 senators who agree that that is a priority. So it'll be interesting to see going into the session. The budget seems to be the number one thing on his mind. But I was actually out at the National Guard base today where they were talking about the threat assessment. I know you listened in on that a little bit, and just talking about kind of the state of defense as we get ready for the session as well.
There were a couple things I found quite interesting about that. First of all, they talked about how Nebraska is in a somewhat decent defensive position. This was for the Pacific Front. They were just basically saying that, hey, you know, they said that we've gotten Chinese components that could spy on us out of cell phone towers. And so that's one of the things they were proud of with that. There wasn't really too much else that came out of that report, but a pretty big fact check. Dasha, you want me to do that, or you want to take that over, since you wrote that article originally?
You know, with the soybean trade, Nebraska
it's an issue.
is top 10, top 5, I believe, in soybean exports. And one of the things that came up today is we're not sending soybeans to China, and we don't have to worry about it because Nebraska has a value-added product, and we're good in that right. And that, I think, drew some confusion from the press corps that was sitting there, because we know this was a huge issue that we reported on several times over the summer. I would love to know your thoughts.
I didn't write down his exact quote, but that one absolutely stuck out in my brain. I immediately went, haven't we reported that farmers are being impacted by this? So maybe he's just talking about like some processing happens here in Nebraska before they're sent elsewhere. But I wasn't quite sure about that one. But that one kind of struck me as, hey, maybe this is something for us to look into, especially because soybeans are such a big product. Like when I do our midday show, when I film in our midday show, I put in farm markets. So I see that those soybean numbers, when I started here, it was $11.87 a bushel or something like that. And now it's down into the tens and maybe even $9 a bushel. And so I know that those soybean farmers are hurting. And so I'm just curious as to see how this global trade war has really impacted them.
Yeah, we know, reporting over the summer, going out, talking to farmers, being out with them as they did harvest, talking about tariffs, not just machinery, right? Parts and production and things like that. But then exports, finding new markets, the thing that we've always heard is, well, we don't necessarily want a bailout. A bailout's great. Bailout's a Band-Aid, really, but we want new markets. We want increased markets. We want to be able to sell our product. Nebraska farmers obviously extremely proud of the product they produce, and they should be. So that is
absolutely they should be. Yeah.
Is their push, right? Is to get new markets in there. So that'll be interesting to see the governor's thoughts out of that, and then we're just heading into the session, and the Capitol Press Corps had a little get together and kind of just enjoyed each other's company, kind of relaxed before the session.
I was there in spirit.
Yes, you were there in spirit, and it is one of those where we just kind of have to wait and see. When it comes to the legislature, I mean, the first 10 days are usually just bill introductions, so nothing fascinating typically. Things that I know you as a detail reader. Yeah, you'll be reading those detail. We'll be looking through those. So we'll see. And then we'll be here.
There'll be a huge spreadsheet in Word with like bills and their statuses. It'll be great.
I love that you love spreadsheets. Excel and I are not friends. I wish I was.
Hold on. It's not that I love spreadsheets, it's that I'm a visual guy, so I kind of need something along the lines of a spreadsheet to just visualize what mess this bill is. Because last year I used a Word doc, and I think spreadsheets are the way to go.
It is. Spreadsheets are the way to go, and we will be referencing that greatly. And then lunch in the legislature, obviously, our bite-sized here breakdown, obviously just giving you our thoughts right now ahead, but every Monday at 12:30 throughout the 60-day session, we're going to be here. We're going to be providing political analysis. We're going to be providing updates, things we find interesting, things that are happening. So we really hope that you'll join us for this kind of team up among Gray media stations. Ian, so excited to have you here, excited to kick this off, and thanks so much for taking time today.
Right back at you, Darsha. Thanks for doing this. I'm really excited, and thank you for watching, of course.
Absolutely. We will see you guys next week.